Okay, I sent her one on both Instagram and here. That way she can see it. How's everybody doing? Let me know if the music is too loud. Oh, there she is. Hi!
Hello.
Hi!
Okay, let me remember how to put my face on. Is this right?
Okay, cool. I never know if it's loud or not in the background. Thanks for joining us.
I'm so glad to be. I'm mostly glad to be. I wish my face was here.
Let me see if I
I'm so
can
sorry.
invite. Okay, I invited you to turn it on. So let's see if that helps. There we go.
Okay, hi.
Hi! Thank you
How's it going?
for joining us. I'm so excited. I've been listening to some of your books that you've done, and I am like fangirling pretty hard because you've done it so well.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, we've been huge fans of yours. We watch like you do your recordings on TikTok, and
Mhm.
so I was like, I really need to email her and try to get pick her brain.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that we're doing this. I'm gonna turn my volume up. Hold on. Hi,
So if
guys.
you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, why everybody's coming on in.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Andi Eloise. I'm an audiobook narrator. I started this whole journey toward becoming an audiobook narrator last year in September, September 2023, and it's gone pretty okay. I'm really glad to be doing what I'm doing.
That's crazy that you started last year.
Yeah.
Did you always want to narrate, or how did you get into this genre?
That's a great question. So I have a degree in theater. I've always wanted to be a performer. Even as a little girl, like that was sort of the only thing that I really gravitated toward. I like kind of played around with the idea of doing a few other things, but I always came back to performing. And so I got a degree in theater and pursued the stage for a while after I graduated. But for one reason or another, it just wasn't working out for me. And so I went and did some other things with my life that were less what's the word, less satisfying, I guess. And literally one day last year, I was just like, I have been doing jobs that I haven't really loved or been passionate about for a decade, and I'm kind of miserable and I don't know what to do with my life or my time. So what if I just do audiobook narration? And the reason I thought that is because in 2012 I discovered LibriVox. I don't actually know if that still exists, but it's a platform that hosts public domain books. And so all of the narration is volunteer and the engineering is all volunteer. And you can tell because there are books, like I remember listening to Sense and Sensibility, and I think there were 13 different narrators who covered the chapters of that book. It was pretty wild.
Wow.
So I was just like, maybe I'll just do this for fun, like in between the other jobs that I have. And but then I did my research and I discovered ACX and I got a coach and I started auditioning and getting job after job after job. And then it became possible, potentially possible for me to make this my full-time career. It's not yet, but that's where we're heading.
I hope it can be soon because, like I
Every finger
said,
crossed.
it's so good. I finished Over the Moon.
Yeah, what a good book.
Oh man, your guys' narration between you and Brandon, it was just so seamless.
That's
It
so
was
nice. It's really fun
so
working with
seamless.
Brandon.
I was like, wow, their chemistry is like, it's really there between you guys. And I was just like, there was parts where I was like laughing because she was irritating him. And I was like, you know what? He kind of deserves it though.
Yeah, that book made me feel a lot of different ways because I really wanted to root for Wolf, for the main male character, but he
Right.
made some really bad decisions a lot. But I really,
Yes.
really liked the female main character. She had a lot of vibrancy to her that I really enjoyed.
I thought she was so fun. And I thought you like hit every one of her moods so well. Like when she was like kind of being sneaky and then like when she was pissed. And I was just like, this is just so good. Yes, that's what I was comparing you to. I don't know if you listen to Joe Arden and Maxine Mitchell, but whenever they
Yeah.
do duets, it's so seamless and it's the chemistry is off the charts. And that's what we were talking about that you guys reminded us of.
That is such a compliment. Thank you so much. I think we've done, I don't know, 5 or 6 books together this year, and we've got a couple scheduled for next year. It's a real blast to be able to, because I we met at the beginning of this past year when I sort of did like an all call to TikTok, and I was like, "Hey, male narrators, does anyone want to practice duetting?" Because I one of my goals this year was to be cast in a duet, and he was one of the guys that was like, "Yeah," because he was also just getting into voice acting and narrating, and we just really hit it off, and it's been really cool to work with him off and on this year, and it feels really good to work with someone that I know pretty well. There's just a little bit more trust there, and I know his cadences and sort of the way that he plays. And so it's really fun to lend our voices to something together.
You can definitely tell because it was so fun to listen to. And usually I listen to like audiobooks really fast. I'm like a two times speed kind of person.
Oh
I
no!
slowed I slowed mine down because I was like, this is so good. I don't want it to be over with. So
I
I,
find
I
that
did
with a
one
lot
and a
of books.
half.
I find that with a lot of books. I'm somewhere between a 1.2 to a 1.3 girl. If I'm not narrating, if I'm in the middle of narrating something, of recording something, it has to be at 1.0 because I'm naturally a fast speaker. So if I'm constantly like taking in other fast speakers, then when I record, it's too fast.
Right.
But I always tend to slow down toward the end of a book. I just kind of drag my feet, like I never really want it to be over.
No, yeah, I was slower as the more I went through the book, like when I hit 80%, I just like kept going down. And I was like, oh my God, it's almost done, and I don't want it to be done because it's so good.
That's funny.
Yes, that's another talent I was going to talk about. You being able to acknowledge like you're a fast speaker, and then like programming your brain to go slower, like that's pretty talented.
I don't know if I would call it that. It's one of the things that I it's one of my biggest flaws is that I speak a little too fast.
I don't think that's a flaw. I love Lorelai Gilmore, so like fast speaking
Yeah.
is like the way to my heart. So like
Yes. Yes.
pushes
I
you up.
really I loved the speed of their banter. Absolutely. But like
Yes.
some people just can't hear that fast, you know?
Right. No, yeah, that's what I was saying. You know it's good when you have to slow it down. Yes.
Oh, hey,
I,
Cass.
I did not want it to end, and I was really hoping like the rest of the series was gonna be on there, and I was like, I'm gonna have to ask her if she's gonna do the rest of the series with him because I'm gonna need it.
Yeah, so the author of that series, Tess, has asked us if we're interested in doing it. Of course, we both said yes, but we haven't signed contracts yet. So everything's just sort of like a hope and a dream until you sign a contract. But she has reached out and asked us to do the next 2 books. So I hope so because she's told me what the second book is about, and I think it's going to be even better than the first book. I think they're actually all on KU right now, so you can read it if
Okay.
you want to. Um, but the way she described it, it sounds like it's going to be better than the second or than the first book. So I really, really want to do it.
Ooh, I know I already
That's a lot
downloaded
of
it,
fun
but
for
I was
me.
like, I don't know if I can read the next books now because all I'm gonna hear is your guys' voice.
Ah, that's the
So,
dream. That is the
so
dream.
I'm
Hey,
like, I'm
Marissa.
just gonna wait.
That's so funny. Yeah. Well, we haven't signed a contract, so I don't know when we'll be able to do it. But I really like that that author like markets her audiobook. I mean, we don't see sales after we turn in our portions, so hopefully she's seeing like a good return on that investment for her as an author. But she's like out there hustling, like she's making it happen for herself, and I really appreciate that.
Good. I mean, her writing was phenomenal, and
Yeah.
it was such a good story. But then the way you guys did it together just brought it to life, and it was just a movie that I got to watch, and I was like rooting the whole time, like, yay!
That's so fun. Yeah, we're talking about Tess, Marissa.
Yes, it was so good. So yeah, that was gonna be my question. I was like, I really hope that you guys do the rest of the series because now when I like downloaded her second book, I read the beginning and I was like, all I hear is Auntie's voice, so I'm gonna need it in audio.
Hell yeah. Is she your best friend, Marissa? I didn't
Oh,
know that.
that's awesome.
That's awesome. I knew you guys were good friends, but your best friend. I like her so much.
And then
Yeah,
I
I've
also
heard good
was
things
listening
about book
to
two,
Break
so
for
I'm
Me.
ready. You were listening to which one?
Break for Me.
Oh my gracious. Girl, I did that back in March. That was like my fifth book ever, and the first dark romance that I did. And
Yes. I was like halfway through, and I don't know if I should have laughed as much as I laughed in this book, but I was laughing because
the
like she's just
MFC gave
nonstop
fire to her.
irritating.
Yes, she was very fun to play.
Yes. Oh my God. Every time I heard your voice, I was already preparing to start laughing. Like I was like, here we go. She's gonna come through.
It gets a little heartbreaky at the end.
Yes. Well, but I was just like, you did it so well because I felt like every emotion, like she was scared and then she was like irritated. She's like, you know what? I'm just gonna kind of like twist this a little bit to make it a little bit harder for you.
She was obnoxious to him. It was so fun.
And then when
Yeah.
she was working with Memphis and they were like both getting at him at the same time, oh my gosh, I lost it.
The woman who voices Memphis, Katrina Medina, she is so talented. I really, really like what she does as a narrator.
I thought she was super impressive because like all I picture is her like in a box, but she was just so like so fun to listen to at the same time.
Yeah, she has a very, very magnetic voice.
I thoroughly enjoyed that one too, and I was like, Andy is just showing like she could do this one and then she could do this one, which is like such a range. I was like, yes, yes, narrator.
That's his pseudonym. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what he uses for his acting world. Also,
I
fun fact, one of the hardest words in the English language for me to pronounce is eternity. It's so hard to get the R and the N together, eternity. I don't know what it is about it, but it took me many, many, many takes to get the credits, to like record the credits because I could not say it.
I'm the same way because I was talking to them and I was like, it's nowhere, and I just kept stumbling. I was like, I'm just gonna send you a screenshot, okay? I'm just gonna stop trying to send
It's a hard name to say.
this. I got tongue tied every time, and I was just like, oh no, I loved that one. I've heard him before in other books, but this is the first one that I listened with both of you together, and I was like, yes, I love these guys together.
I really loved that book, and I'm really ready to record book two. Just like the second
Yes,
that she calls, I'm very, very ready. I wanna
yes,
see what happens at the end. Because for me, I know that when I am going to record a book, I need to read it beforehand to prep the script. So when
okay,
I'm in a series and I finish book one, I don't immediately like just jump in to read book two because I know I'm going to have to read it again before I record. Um, so I haven't read book two of any of these series yet, and I'm
oh
just missing out.
really? The angst in the back of your head, like, what is going
Like
on?
I know something's happening, and I know that these books are published, but I haven't had time to do it because I know I'm gonna have to do it again before
Right.
I record. And you gotta make hard choices, right? You gotta figure out what your priorities are.
That's funny that you say you read it ahead of time because I talked to another narrator and they're like, I read it as I record it. And I was like, isn't that hard? Like, because you'll be
They
like
must
getting
be
the
a
shocked.
veteran narrator. Yeah, they must be a veteran narrator. And I don't think that I'm talented enough to do that. I need to know what's coming, what's happening next. If there's like any idiosyncrasies about the characters that come up toward the end of the book that are going to inform choices that I make vocally at the beginning of the book, I want to know that information. And the author doesn't always provide that to you. So, like, I've heard horror stories of narrators who voiced a certain character a certain way. And then, on page 400, there's just like a little note that's like, he said in his Irish brogue accent. And then they have to go back and re
Oh my
record
gosh.
all those things, like I just that's not for me. And also I'm a very anxious girly. So when
Same.
I'm reading something for the first time, I'm not like savoring it. I'm like speed reading it because I want to find out what happens next. So before I record anything, I read that book cover to cover and I make copious notes about the characters, anything that's going to inform my vocal choices. I'm highlighting the dialogue, I'm marking up the script. We go all in because I'm just not skilled enough to do it cold.
No, I think you paying such attention to detail really shows in your work because like I said, I finished both audiobooks within a day. Like I could not stop
That's
listening.
amazing.
And it was like every time someone come around me, I'm like, shh, hold on. Okay.
Andy is speaking.
Like
That's
if I
funny.
had to pause it the whole time, I'm like, all right, like let's speed this up so I can go back. So your meticulous work is paying off because it was
Oh,
phenomenal.
bless it. I don't actually know if it's paid off because I've never been able to sit through a book that I've done. I'm too self-critical. I just I can't do it. I'm always like, well, I should have done this differently. I should have made a different choice here.
No, no, you did. It was absolutely excellent. And like most of us in Book Club, we love audiobooks and we're very vocal about our love for audiobooks.
Mhm.
And once we found you, we're like, okay, we need her because she's amazing. So,
That's so nice. Yeah, The Truth Will Set You Free was the thriller that I did this summer, and I actually had to read that twice before I started recording it because at the end of my first read, I still had a lot of questions about who did what in the plot, like how the story all connected. Because I don't know if you would consider me a really good or a really bad audience member, but I never figure stuff out ever. Like it's always a surprise to me what happens. I
that's
remember
sweet.
when the Notebook came. Yeah, I remember when the Notebook came out, and I was like, I watched it for the first time with some family friends, and I was sobbing at the end. I was so shocked that that happened at the end of the movie, and they were all sitting on the couch like,
You didn't see it coming?
yeah, yeah. And so when I did The Truth Will Set You Free, when I read it through the first time, I still had questions. What do you mean? Blah blah. Like, oh my gosh, there were so many twists. So then I read it a second time, and then on the record was the third reading of it.
That's funny. Do
Not a good
you
audience.
do you read the book ahead of time before deciding you want to record it?
No, I'm a brand new narrator, so I don't really have a lot of choices. I take the jobs that are offered to me. I audition for them, but when someone's
Right.
like, "You're hired," I'm not going to turn them down.
Fair, fair. Yeah, I was just curious if you were just like, I don't know if I could pull this off, or if you're like, I don't know if I can do that kind of accent, or what goes into.
Yeah, I do. I have learned to ask about accents up front.
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of accents in my toolbox. I learned an Italian accent for a book that I did in September or October, and then I actually I have two books coming out, or I'll be recording them in January, February that feature Italian accents, so that will work out in my favor. The book that I started today has an Irish accent in it, which I currently do not have. So I'm working on it as we speak. But I've really learned to ask ahead of time because there are certain accents that I can't do an Australian accent to save my life. I couldn't do it. If you put a pew pew to my head, I would be like, oh well, because I know that I don't have it in my body. Uh, but you do learn through mistakes as time goes on
Mm.
that there are just certain questions you have to know ahead of time. But I'm also not really auditioning for books that I know for sure I don't have the skill set for. And I'm not auditioning for books in genres that I'm not interested in recording.
Okay,
Does
that's
Alexa
what I was curious about.
does Alexa teach you accents? What?
I didn't know that either. I was gonna ask, how did you learn an Italian accent? What was
Yeah,
that
so
process?
there's this incredible website called accenthelp.com, and it's hosted, I want to say his name is Jim Johnson. Please don't quote me on that. But you pay $30 for an entire module of any accent in the world, and they have archives of like basically there's like a map on their home screen, and you just like kind of click around, and anywhere you click there's like various regional accents of that area, and you pay $30 and you get an entire module of that specific accent with sort of like an e-learning book and like I don't know, there's like a folder of MP3s. And so they give you the book, but then there's a recording that reads every word of every sentence in that book. And there's like listen and repeat sections. There's vowel concentration, what's the not vowel consonant concentration. There's sentence practice, there's paragraph practice. You learn the history of that area and how that language has been influenced over time. It's amazing, and for like $30, like a
That's
self-guided module is so accessible. But for the books that I'm doing in January, February, because they they require Italian, Irish, and three other accents as like side characters. I'm actually going to be working with a dialect coach after I do the Irish module, just to like make sure what I'm doing is also what I'm hearing, right? Because you can say something out loud and you think you're nailing it, but someone else knows that you're not, like we kind of hear what we want to hear.
right. I'm always curious that because I don't know, being just a listener, I didn't realize the amount of work that goes into making an audiobook. So I
Well,
found like talking to you
some
guys is so educational.
there there are some voice actors who just naturally have a bent. Like, there are some voice actors who can naturally like do impersonations, right? Who are really good at impressions of other actors or of accents, and they can sort of like squirrel their way through anything. And then there are voice actors like me that are not naturally good at anything and have to put a lot of education and work in to sound no, like listenable.
No, I don't. I think that just shows your passion and then like your ability to adapt because I know for one that sounds very intimidating to me and I would be like, I don't think I could do that. But like seeing you take the notes and like pay attention to how they talk and then going that far as to do that research and practice that diligently just shows how well you are as a narrator. So we
Oh, that's
definitely
so nice.
want to hear more from you.
Yeah, I really love this job, and I want to be good at it long enough to have a career here. So, and also I've been really lucky because all of that work that is a little intimidating, if we're being honest, is also really fun. Like, it's really fun to learn a new accent. It's really fun to read a script. Like that's
Yeah.
all of those steps are genuinely enjoyable. It's an enjoyable part of the even though it takes a long time and it takes a lot of effort, it's also fun while I'm doing it.
Yes, I agree. Andy has a voice that's very easy to listen to. I usually only navigate towards the main male character's voice in when I go and buy audiobooks. And I actually really enjoyed your monologue. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just follow you and see what else you do.
That is so nice. I hate the sound of my voice. I have always hated the sound of my voice. Hated it.
What a career choice.
I know. I love performing, but I don't love hearing it.
Really, no, I actually found it like it was very easy to listen to. Like Wendy said, it wasn't like nails on a chalkboard. So you're amazing, I promise.
That's incredibly generous. Thank you.
And then someone asked, what genres are you not interested in?
Um, I'm not interested in children's books. I have a friend who did one back in early spring, and I sort of like walked with her through that experience, and it was like the hardest thing she'd ever done. There's a very specific demand on your voice that is required for children's books, and that's just not for me. Um, I haven't auditioned for anything in like the suspense horror genre because, as we have established, I am a scaredy cat and my anxiety levels could never, just could never. Um, like I can't even read a suspenseful novel because I'm just like too invested. And then I find myself hyperventilating all the time, and that's just not healthy, you know? Like that sensation of being lightheaded is fun for a minute, but not for prolonged amounts of time. Um, and I'm not auditioning for anything nonfiction. I've done two memoirs and they were fine. I enjoyed them while I was like working through them, but it's not as enjoyable as fantasy, romance, romantasy.
Right.
Though those genres are starting to lean more into like they're more toward, like you said earlier, it's almost like a movie. It's the closest thing
Yes.
to like a stage play that we
Mhm.
have as voice performers. And I'm just really enjoying filling my time with stories that have a dependable happily ever after.
Fair. Yeah, because I was actually wondering because like in horror books, I'm always wondering like, do they actually like scream? Like, are those screams legit? Like, were you
I wouldn't
actually
know.
scared
I've
while reading it?
never once listened to one. I could never. It's and nothing is ever a hard no, right? Like you don't want to
Right.
limit yourself. I would just have to be careful. I was approached about a month ago about a psychological horror book that I had to
Ooh.
turn down because I got through the first 20 pages and realized that I was holding my breath the whole time, and that's just not for right now in this season of my life. That is just not a healthy choice. I want to
I
come
feel
to
like
the
it
book
also,
excited.
yeah, I think it has the potential to be very realistic because you're going to be that character, so they're probably
Yeah.
going through the sounding the same. So,
Yeah, and you have to have empathy for every character, whether you like them or not. Otherwise, they're not
right.
real. They're a caricature.
Mhm.
And it can be really hard to put yourself in those mental spaces.
Yeah, I felt that when I was listening to Over the Moon because I was just like, I really don't like Derek. Can we just not mention him anymore?
Don't like Derek. We'll never like him.
I was wondering too. I was like, did she get to those parts like realizing who Derek is and just like sitting there like scowling at the book while she's recording?
Yes, you did, because right, because there's this idea of enacting of substitution of like, oh, you've never experienced what's happening on page, but you've experienced something that puts you in the same sort of like emotional place. And so, and you know, sometimes you have experienced what's happening on page,
Yep.
and being in that place again can be a little triggering.
That was going to be my next question. How do you handle like the harder scenes in like especially in dark romance, those traumatic scenes? How do you get through them doing your voice acting?
It helps that I've read the book already, so I know what's going to happen at the end, right? Even in dark romance, there's always a happily ever after. That's the mark of our genre. But honestly, like sometimes those are the funnest scenes to do. It gives you, I don't know if catharsis is the right word, but like being able to express these sort of darker fetishes or feelings or thoughts that maybe we would like never say out loud or like not really talk about in public can be a little bit freeing. Like, okay, I just want to be clear. Not that I'm having super dark feelings and thoughts and stuff, right? But like being able to like sort of act out this other life and being really grounded in what someone is experiencing on page can be a really cathartic, almost therapeutic experience.
Okay. I think that that was beautifully said because I was always curious, especially in Break for Me. Like she's going through a lot. I mean, she's been taken
Yeah.
against her will, and
Yeah.
she has like that fear of being taken back the whole time. So I'm always wondering, like, how did you put yourself in that mindset to deliver her character so well?
That's these are such great questions, lady. Great job. Yeah, you go through the script and you consider all you go back to your acting basics, right? Like what are the beats and tactics of every scene? What are the emotional changes of the scene and why? What's the underlying subtext or motivation of every part of every scene? And when you are too ingrained in the feelings, you go back to those basics so that you can be truthful to the character but not self-harming. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Hmm.
Hi, Danny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was
so
worried about too. Like, do you mentally, like, your mental health going through like the traumatic dark romances? Like, how do you separate that?
Yeah, so far it hasn't been a problem. So far I haven't felt so connected with a character that I have like secondhand, traumatic damage from it. But again, it can be very technical for a voice actor. You especially like if you feel you're triggered by certain things, you do go back to those basic things like what are the motivations behind this character and why, and you it's just a constant reminder that you are not this person, you're just bringing this person's truth to the world.
Okay. Do you think that your background in theater definitely helped navigate narration?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Acting is like it's like step 1 on the staircase to doing any sort of voice acting. You have to have a really strong foundation in acting, right? Because when audiobooks became a thing decades ago, it was really just like some older white gentleman kind of reading in sort of that New York monotone into a microphone. And now it really is more of a performance. And that is
Yeah.
what is going to separate human performers from robots is the connection to the experience of the soul. It's the human condition and being able to portray that in a grounded and real way. And you get
Okay.
that from acting basics.
That makes sense because I'm always wondering, like, reading or listening to certain books that have a very emotional passage where, like, the character, whether it's the male or female, it's just like they're broken, they're crying, they're sobbing, and like you can feel and hear that emotion in their voice. So I'm always
Yeah.
wondering, like, what happens on the other side? Like, is the narrator actually like feeling this and delivering it, or is it they are putting on like their performance mask to get it out? I'm always curious where that is.
I'm sure it's different for everyone. I would argue that most narrators are feeling what you're hearing. I will say there is a caveat. I took an acting for audio class this summer, and one of the big things I really took away from that is making sure that audiobooks are not a visual thing, right? So like
Mhm.
what you interpret as a consumer of entertainment is often colored by what you're seeing, right? So if you see an old lady, she doesn't have to sound like an old lady, right? Because that's
Right.
informing your perception of her. With books, we just have what someone sounds like, because they don't have visual representations to sort of go off of. And so
Right.
along those lines, you want to be able to express emotions in your performance, but you don't want to lose the driver's seat. At no point can the listener feel like the story is out of control or they don't know that eventually it's going to land somewhere because that's too much effort on the listener's part. It takes too much emotional energy to sort of listen to someone feel out of control. So there is a balance between giving a really great performance and also making sure that your listener knows you're going to land them safely eventually.
Right. That makes sense because I've listened to a couple books that had like very like emotional scene and it would have me like sobbing and I would have to pause and be like, okay, like I need to breathe because they're going through it too. Like so I need to calm down before I resume. But I always think
Yeah.
if you're gonna make me feel that emotion, like obviously you're top tier. Like you got me there. So you made me
Yeah.
feel this way.
Yes.
That's how I felt so many times with Break for me. Like the whole time I'm like on the edge of my seat. I also liked that it had background noises too.
Oh
It was
yeah. It's a
almost
very
like a
immersive
graphic
listening
audio.
experience.
Yes, like you can hear the zip ties and everything. And I noticed that and I was like, this graphic audio.
It does kind of feel like a graphic audio.
Yeah, I was like, because I would hear stuff and like, him sighing or him turning something, and I was like, this is kind of like making that movie experience more realistic for me. I was having a
Oh.
great time. I was like, this is awesome.
It really takes you to a different place. Do you listen to a lot of graphic audio?
I started to once I discovered it like earlier this year with a
Oh.
fantasy arc that I got, and I was like, this is a whole new world. Like I'm hearing blades hit each other and they're fighting. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really, really fun way to experience a book.
Yeah, I mean, it just brings that whole performance, like you said, just makes it more real.
Danny in your chat down there. He works with graphic audio a lot. He's a very, very talented narrator.
Oh, I love graphic audio. I found it first with, fantasy. And then yours
Mhm.
was the first romance or dark romance that I listened to that had like the graphic aspects. And I was like, I didn't know that they did it for, regular audio too. I thought it was only for
Actually,
fantasy.
that wasn't a graphic audio production. Nowhere Eternity, the male narrator, he did all of that. He engineered the whole thing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed. I thought it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a graphic because it's like,
he did a really good job. I mean,
wow.
I haven't listened to the whole book. I've just listened to clips because I can't stand it. I can't stand listening to myself, but I've listened to clips, and the clips I've heard are great. They're so talented.
Yeah, the whole time I think I was like only like 3 minutes in and I heard like the door creak or something, and it like I paused and I was like, hold on, what did I get?
Did my door just
Yeah, I was so confused, and like I was like, okay, I think it's the book. I think it's. So I rewind it, and I'm like staring in the middle of my living room. I was like, all right, no one's opening doors. Like it is my book.
open? Incredible. Incredible.
I had such a good time with that one. Oh, it was so fun.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
glad.
do you have a recording studio that you go to, or is it in home?
It's in home. It's in home is the word. I actually built this booth last October-ish. So it's really not, it's a little I was a little ambitious with the space. It's a little bit big for my needs. But it's like I live here. I love this booth. I really it's a very cool thing to be able to, close this door and feel like I'm transported to another place.
Oh, that's so fun. Were you a big reader before you went into narrating?
Yeah, I've always been what's the word? English language. I've always been like a voracious reader. I have loved reading. It's always been an enjoyable hobby. I remember as a child getting in trouble. Like if I would go, we would go visit my grandmother and I would get in trouble because I'd want to like lay on the couch and read instead of go outside and play where the sun and bugs were. I would get in trouble a lot for that. And I remember the reason that I wear glasses now is because I ruined my own eyesight as a teenager when we would drive home at night. I would try to like read my book in the headlights of the cars behind us, which is
No.
just not a smart choice. I did it for a long time and I like ruined the muscles in my eyes. Um, but I discovered romance last year. I read my first real romance book
Really?
last year, and it opened an entire I keep using the word world, but like it opened a whole universe to me. And
Yes.
I read like so I've read a lot of books. I read often. I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. I used to.
Mhm.
But I read all the time now. There's so many good books.
There really is, yes. I discovered reading, well, reintroduced it in during COVID because I was
Hmm.
pregnant. So you're stuck inside, like the TV gets boring after
Yeah.
a while. And I started venturing off into books, and I was like, I don't know where this has been my whole life, but this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I went from like Nicholas Sparks and like suspense, and then I went into like military romance, and then I got like a recommendation to like dark romance and just like dove in. I am probably like the worst reader. I don't read the blurbs or the synopsis. I go based off of cover.
Interesting.
If the cover looks good, I'll read
The
it.
cover vibes. I like that. Well, I, like many of us, ACOTAR was my gateway drug. It was the first romantasy I read. It was the first romance book that I read. Not the first book was not a romance, but the second book was. The second book was. And it I think I had spent the last 8 or 10 years mostly reading like self-help books, like Christian inspirational, like how to be a better person, how to improve yourself, because I just thought who I was needed a lot of improvement. And once I rediscovered fiction and books that one of the reasons I really love romance outside of all the spice is because it doesn't really matter what happens in the middle. You can depend on a happily ever after. You can
Right.
know that no matter what happens to these cutie little characters, at the end, they're going to be happy and safe and together. And that really did something for my anxiety. And it's really nice at the end of a long day or week or whatever's happening in our lives or in the greater country. It's really nice to lay my head down at the end of a day and immerse myself in a world where I know it's going to be okay at the end.
Yes, I totally agree. Like it's an escape from
Yeah.
reality. And that's why I loved reading because I was like, this is so easy. I have really bad anxiety as well. So I was like, I can go into a book
Anxiety
and like,
goes, you know.
yes, and actually like turn off my brain instead of like having it run wild is so
Yeah.
peaceful.
Best sleep of my life happens when I fall asleep with a book in my hand. Hmm.
Yes, because the whole time I'm like, I'm just in La La Land and not worried
Yes.
about everything else around me. So
It's so cute.
I
These two are having a little fight. We know they're going to be together in the end. Just give it another 100 pages. It's fine.
right? Or like if they're happy and you only have like 50 pages left, you're like, is there a second book? Are you, are you gonna leave
Yeah.
me on a cliffhanger?
I just finished recording book one of a duology, and the ending was incredibly ambiguous. And the second book has not been published yet, so that was a little hard for me. I know there's a happily ever after awaiting at the second, right? Because it's not a romance book if there's not an HEA. So I know
Right.
it's going to work out in the end, but like there's so many questions. Like anything could happen.
I love that. I love that you do that while listening because that's how we are, at the same time.
Dan
Yes,
brings
the
up
miss.
a really good point.
Oh
Just
my God, that drives me
one
crazy.
therapist appointment would solve a lot.
Right, that is the one trope that always gets me. I'm just like, just talk to them.
Yeah.
It's
And I
be
think the
fine.
older that I get, the less I like the third act breakup. We don't
Yes,
need it, you know?
agreed.
Have a grown-up conversation and just skip those 3 weeks of misery.
Yes, agreed.
Oh
I
man.
was gonna say, how do you like doing spicy scenes? Because I did notice like Break for me was a lot spicier than Over the Moon.
I don't know if I would say it was a lot Over the Moon had some
Oh yeah.
Over the Over the Moon was my first experience with certain types of connection, I'll say. You got to be careful what you say on this app. Uh, it wasn't as mean, but it was explorative. I'll say that. I really like the spicy scenes. I was a product of purity culture, and it really informed the way that I viewed myself as a woman. Like I couldn't say the word machina until I was 19. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Yeah.
I was taught that like being a woman was sort of a dirty thing, something to be ashamed of.
Yep.
And so those and also, and this is getting a little preachy, and so like stop me if this is too much, but I find that there's a lot of cultural language about like centered around the male experience, and there's
Mhm.
almost none centered around the female experience, except in romance. In romance,
Yes.
it's written to and for the female gaze, and we're sort of given this community language around what our experiences are, and I find that really beautiful and really exciting, and I I just have really loved sort of regaining that empowerment that I feel like was stolen from me growing up in purity culture and growing up in like a conservative Christian community. So I really I prefer doing books with spice because it feels one kind of like an fu to the patriarchy, but two, it feels really empowering just for me as a woman.
No, I agree. I grew up in a very religious household as well. So, like you said, everything
Yeah.
was kind of like, shh, you don't talk about that.
Yeah.
So, being able to read it where like the woman is in control of how she feels and is able to express like, hey, I want this done because this makes me
Yeah.
happy. And seeing that as
Yeah.
accepted is just so, it's like a breath of fresh air because you're like, she can be in charge.
25-year-old Andy could never be like, listen, this is not working for me. Please try something else.
Yeah, like like, and they're so open and honest in the books. They're like, you know what, that really didn't do it for me, or I'll give it a C. Like, and they're just like
Or like,
open and
or like,
honest.
yes, yes, more of this. Like that's
Yes.
just that was so not accessible to me, like
Yeah.
gonna do it now. I don't know, Danny. I'm sure there are none come to mind. What? Okay.
Yeah, I
That's funny.
because there's a couple like nicknames that I've listened to, and I'm like,
Mm,
could you
let me
really
let me
call
think
them
about
that?
it for a second.
I feel like
You
yeah,
know
baby
what?
Kim.
You know what? I think I know that the hardest thing for me to say in a book is thank you.
Really?
Every single time I say it, it doesn't feel real. Like it doesn't feel like that's that is the that's how someone sounds when they say thank you. I don't know what it is about it, but I can't do it.
That's funny.
That's really funny, Danny. Baby. That's so funny. Yeah, it's nothing all the filthy words, no big deal. I will say that I don't know if I can say this on TikTok. I will say that panties really threw me for a while. Like that
Yeah.
was a really hard one for me to wrap my head around, mostly because like you're already colder.
Right.
But it's like the normal, it's like a normal, like I can't say the word eternity. Oh my God, I said it. I can't say it when I'm recording. But it's thank you is the hardest thing for me to say without re-recording 8 times.
Okay.
I don't know
Common
what
word
that
reference.
says about me as a person.
That's funny though, because I think the only times I've been like, is when like the nickname was like Bunny. You know,
Bunny,
Bunny. So he like repeatedly called her Bunny, and he was like, "You want to act like a rabbit?" And I was like,
that's gross. I will say I had a gay best friend in college and I called him Bunny. I don't know why, but I did.
"Yes,
I don't know if I could take it
Bunny."
seriously now. I haven't done a lot of like nicknames or like sweet somethings in a book.
Wait,
I've done a lot of angry romance. Daniel,
no.
that's not a true story.
Yeah, I just read it too, and I was just like, the whole time, every time he called her that, I was just like, "Stop."
I don't like it. Cass read one that was a cutie one. Stop. Okay.
That's phenomenal. I
Okay.
always wonder that, or if there was just like, if you played a really bad character, like in the story, like they are like the villain, and you found yourself like
Mhm.
getting irritated with that character while you're recording them.
I'm interesting. I don't know. It's really fun playing the villain. I'm in an audio drama, like a space opera audio drama, and the character that I play is sort of an unhinged psychopath. She's very southern, very she might be a sociopath. And the things that she says, Andi Eloise would never. But playing her is so juicy. Like it's so fun to put myself in the brain of someone that I don't quite comprehend, like that I just don't like empathize with, or you know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
so enjoyable to be someone that you just don't connect to.
That's what I was always curious with. Like, if you have like that one character that, always goes like too far and that's why they're the villain, right?
I will
That's what.
say, and I think Cass saw me record this book. I will say there was a mother character in Goodbye Again by Caitlin Moss who was incredibly triggering for me.
Really?
Incredibly. She just was the way that the things that she said and the way that she said them and like her responses and reactions to certain things that happened in the book felt very familiar to me.
Okay. Hmm.
And so I will say that was one of the hardest characters that I've had to play and react to because it felt very close to home.
Right. Do you have a favorite character that you have voiced?
I don't know if I have a favorite character that I voiced. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think yet. I don't think so yet.
Okay, fair. Because I'm always wondering, like, every time I finish a book, I'm like, these two are just the best. And then, like, I'll go read something else and be like, okay, well, maybe they'll move to second. I still
And
really
that's
like these two.
and that's the problem. Every time I like really get into a script and I think this is the one, then I do another book and this is the one, right?
Right.
And but it doesn't diminish the past experiences.
Hmm.
It's really hard. Cass is right. Aiden Snow says never pick a favorite.
Fair. I always wonder if there was
It's
just like
not
that
it's
one
not nice
character.
to anyone because everyone else loses, right? But
Right.
I would say I've not had a bad time doing any of the books I've done. I've genuinely had so much fun in every
Mhm.
single book I've done,
Okay,
barring my very
wonderful.
first one.
Because like listening to Break for me, you as the female main character just had me rolling, like I said earlier. So it's like, was she laughing the whole time, or is it just me that finds her extremely funny?
I remember recording that book and laughing a lot, but it's because I really resonated with her snarkiness,
Yes.
right? That's a part of our lives that we don't get to enact a lot publicly. Um, and it just sort of felt like, well, I wish I could say that. I wish I could do that. I wish that was my response in this situation.
That's what I loved her character so much because I was like, here you have this like whole this character who, takes people for a living and always is just like, I don't care. I don't care. The only person I really care about is Memphis. And then you come barreling in and he's just like losing his mind every turn.
Didn't see her coming,
Yes. I loved
but
all
then
the
he did.
sighs. Like every time he sighed before responding to her, he was like,
Am I going to live through this? Yes. That
or him
felt
like
very
clenching
good,
the
didn't it?
steering wheel.
Yes.
Oh,
We
and then
love him.
like I said, I loved the tag team, and he's just like, "Are you gotta be kidding me? Like she's a job. You're not supposed to be picking her over me." And they're both just snickering back and forth.
Yes. And then Memphis is like the referee.
Yes. She's like, "Really? Should you be doing that?" And he just like hangs up. He's like, "I'm done."
Yep.
Oh man, I had such a blast. I cannot wait to hear more of your books that you're gonna do. Are you gonna do any signings?
Yeah, so I did my first signing this year. I
Oh,
did I did Sinful signings in Roanoke, Virginia. Next year I am slated to do, I think I'm only signed up to do one. I'm doing Tennessee LitCon in Kingsport, Tennessee in September. I'm actually gonna go to Sinners and Stardust in Boston as a PA for Nevessa Allen. So I'm not gonna be like officially signing there, but I will be there physically. I am looking for one more signing to do in late spring or early summer, but it's yet to be determined.
You should do the one in Vegas. What is it? Wild and Windy in Vegas in October.
Love in Vegas, Wild and Windy. I don't think that I'm not a big enough name to do that. My coach is Carly Robbins, and I don't know if you heard of her. She's a very big deal. But she asked me to apply for uh Indies Invade Philly, which is sort of helped run by Lyric Audiobooks. So I did turn in like an application to that, but again, I no one really knows. Like if you don't follow me on social media, you don't really know who I am in the greater narration world. I haven't like made waves yet. I haven't done any really big books for really huge authors or a really big company yet. So
Mhm.
I'm very small fries.
Yeah, we think of you as a big fry. We love you.
Oh, you guys are so nice.
Yeah, that's why we were all saying, like, come to Vegas so we can meet you because we're gonna go to Vegas in October. We'll have like banners of your face on them and be like, "Yay!"
Oh my God. Could you imagine? I would lose my mind.
You're just sitting at your booth and see us come up with your giant face like on a poster.
Listen,
We're here
I
for
don't know
her.
if like any other voice actor feels this way. I really feel like they do. We're such nerds. You know what I mean? Like we are such the idea that we could be made to feel like celebrities is so far beyond the scope of our understanding. Like I wouldn't know what to do. I would not know what to do. Someone came up to me at Sinful Signings and asked for my autograph because she wanted to get it. She has like a she has like a bookish sleeve and she wanted to get it tattooed on her body. And that just felt like an out of body experience. Do you know what I mean? Because honestly, like my job is talking to myself in a small, quiet, dark room, you know? So it's wild that anyone would like look at me and be like, "You're worthy of a fandom," or
Oh,
whatever it is. Like that's such a wild idea.
yep, that's what I'm saying. You definitely, like I said, when we first started listening to you, within a couple minutes, I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna enjoy this." You made me slow down my reading, my listening
That's
habits.
what's up. That's
And
what's
that takes a
up.
lot for me to do. There's only a couple that I'll be like, all right, I can do 1.5 for you. You made me go
Okay,
all the way
I'll
down
take it. I'll
to
take it.
so
I'll
I
take it.
promise you're extremely talented. We love it. So
That's so fun.
excited. Ooh, yes, she should go to that.
I've heard of Bray, but I can't remember what it stands for. In early June. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I'll look into it.
See, yeah, I never go
One
that
at
low, and
1:30.
I was going because usually I have really bad like I'm like squirrel every time. So if you're going slow, I can't, you won't keep my attention. But you guys
Understand.
had my attention so hard that I was like, all right,
I
I
mean,
can just enjoy this.
that feels like a big deal beyond the read. That's what it is. That
Okay.
feels like a big deal. So I'm going to take that as a big win.
Yes. We'll promise we'll market you because we're gonna be stalking you to get more bucks that
Oh,
you have
that's so
done.
nice.
So I'm so excited.
I have a couple bigger books coming up. Um, so we'll see. We'll see.
I'm excited. Well, thank you again so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to talk to you and pick your brain and find out how you do this amazing job that you do. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And I know that we all had a great time. So thank you again.
Oh, I had a blast. Thank you for asking me. You're a wonderful host. I loved your
Oh,
questions. I
thank
loved the way
you.
that you kept the speed going of this whole conversation. I had a great time, and I appreciate you guys in the chat being here with us.
Yes, thank you so much. And I promise we'll follow you along and probably try to get you back to talk with us about more books because
That
we're
sounds great.
huge fans now.
That sounds awesome.
But thank you again so much. I truly
You're
appreciate it. We're small, but we love to talk to people like you. So thank you again.
I love it. Well, thanks for having me, guys, and Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates Christmas.
Yes. I hope you have a great holiday.
Thanks very much.
Yes, she is amazing. I absolutely love your work, so I'm so glad to see the